Greetings and salutations, and thank you for clicking on the video. It's time yet again for another Q&A session. We're going to take a look at some comments that have come in from YouTube, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. I've had a flood of comments over the last month since the last time we did this, and I pretty much went back about 2 or 3 weeks to look at the comments and came up with some stuff to talk about. The deal with the comments is this: I do read everything you post. I don't necessarily react to everything. It's just a matter of volume at this point. There are so many comments that come in that I just simply can't respond to each and every one of you. But I do appreciate your comments, and as I have stated before in videos like this, a lot of the time I notice that folks in the community jump in and answer questions if I don't get to them first. So that is cool too. So if you want to make a comment or leave a question, either me or somebody else who's part of the EzeeLinux community will probably get back to you real soon. And at the end of this video, I want to talk about some things where you can contact me directly, okay? Yes, I am still using Ubuntu Mate. It is on the Dell machine and running quite happily. I do not have any network issues with this machine. I've had no problems with it. This one was installed when Ubuntu Mate was still in beta. The problems that I have had with Ubuntu Mate and talked about in my past videos have been trying to install it from later disk images, like the first official release, the one that's out right now. There are some definite issues with the network manager, and there are also some issues with video and some other things. So that is why I've been concentrating a lot on Linux Mint, because my 2 laptop machines are currently running it because it works. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into answering some of your questions. And we got the first comment, just came in a little while ago, and I just wanted to comment on this, give you my opinion on it, because I really haven't talked that much about it in the videos that I've posted about Linux Mint 18. He says, I don't like client-side decorations. I just installed GTK3 NOCSD, and bam, the application had the good old server-side decorations. I also disagree with the X apps because they might go in a different direction and will always be behind the latest version because they are forks. I have heard this before. My position on X apps is rather neutral. It's Linux Mint's distribution, and if they want to fork a bunch of apps and put it in there, that's entirely up to them. I also don't think that Linux Mint is very concerned about being cutting edge and having the absolute latest stuff in their distribution. I think they're more concerned with it actually just working. And because they support so many desktops, they wanted things that would work across many desktops. That's what I have read. And they don't really want to deal with the problems that are presented by client-side decorations. And so therefore they have decided at this point to take 6 applications and fork them, and they are going to be distributing those as of Linux Mint 18. So it's fine with me. Now keep in mind that if you don't like an X app, then you can go ahead and install whatever application you want that's already in the repository. So for instance, if you don't like Pix, which is their new picture editor based on gthumb, then you can go ahead and install gthumb, and you'll get the very latest gthumb. It just doesn't look like Pix. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on, and I really don't think it's worth the controversy. I think a lot of stuff has been turned into a big controversy that Linux Mint has done with 18. Like they have taken the codecs out of the image, and now you install them when you install the system, just like Ubuntu has always done. No big deal. It works exactly the same way as far as I'm concerned. I don't care. And I know why they're doing it. It's because they've had to maintain so many different disk images. And if you'll recall, that's how they got hacked a while back when somebody broke into their WordPress site. So maybe they're just trying to make fewer images, and that way they can keep better control over them. So I'm cool with that. No big deal as far as I'm concerned. This is a rather long comment, but it brings up something that I have mentioned in the past. I've actually discussed this with different people in the community. It says, here is an idea. How about someone prominent from the Linux community start a Kickstarter campaign or other platform to make Linux mainstream with, say, Google ads and maybe some TV ads? You could take a vote via web poll on the most user-friendly distro for home users, for people who are not super technical, and once agreed on the distro to promote, run ads, and appeal to the Linux community, to mention it in YouTube, Twitter, and so on. He goes on with some other ideas about putting it on cheap USB devices, selling those, and that way you could use it to make more ads. It's never been a better time to promote Linux due to the whole forced Windows 10 upgrade debacle. And let me tell you what, I agree with that 158%, that last sentence. As far as what he's talking about, the problem is actually getting people interested in the idea of promoting Linux. You have so many different distros, and they are so busy working on their own thing that promotion is not something that they can agree upon, and they don't put a lot of energy into it. So getting all of the people in the Linux community to agree on a distro that would be user-friendly, that you could actually do ads for, I don't think that's going to happen. It's just too fragmented. There are too many different distros. Linux Mint is big enough, I think, that if they wanted to, they could do exactly this. And one of the things that's interesting to point out, especially about Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Mate, those distros, they are nonprofit organizations. Nonprofit organizations are entitled to airtime on television and radio in the United States. I don't quite know how that works around the world, but if you run a nonprofit organization and you take the time to put together a press release, or if you make a TV or a radio type commercial and you send it in, then the television and radio station is pretty much obligated to use it if you are a non-profit organization. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily work that way. I do know for a fact, having worked in television and radio, that we picked our PSAs very carefully. But if you could find somebody in a television station or radio or television network who was a Linux head, and you could produce something that was airworthy, you might be able to get the word out that way, and that would just be another public service announcement done by the network. But the trick here is to produce the ads and figure out what they're going to say, because that is the biggest problem, and it would have to be something that everyone would agree upon. So it would have to be at a distro level. Any of these distros out here that are running totally non-profit could do that. I don't know whether Canonical would qualify as a non-profit organization. I do know that the Ubuntu Foundation itself is non-profit, but Canonical, the company that distributes Ubuntu, is definitely for-profit. So it would depend on the distribution, and it would depend on a lot of different things and a lot of people coming together to be interested in doing that. I personally do not see that sort of interest in the Linux community, and that's one of the reasons that I do these videos and do the outreach that I do, is just to try and let people know that it exists. Within the Linux community, when I do videos, I'm preaching to the choir a lot of the time, because you guys already know all this stuff that I'm showing you and talking about you, and people in the Linux community love to critique videos. Boy, they love to go through them and make sure that you get everything exactly right, and it can become very frustrating for a content provider. However, the maybe 2 or 3% of the people who actually watch my videos who don't know a lot about Linux and might learn something are the ones that I'm actually doing this for, because I'm hoping that people, because of the Microsoft issue, are going to be looking for alternatives and come across some of the introductory videos that I've done, and that might be a gateway to get them started and get them away from Windows. And because Windows has basically screwed the pooch, and I'm not even going to go into all of that, but it's really, I used to really like Windows. I mean, I'm an ex-Windows fanboy here. I used it for 20 years, and I was using Windows back when it was 3.1 is when I started with it. So I followed it all the way along, but I remember by the time Windows 8 came along, I knew, okay, these guys are really going in a direction I don't want to go. And that's why I got super interested in Linux, because Linux does fit my needs better than what Microsoft is doing. And yes, I think more people need to know there is an alternative out there. They do not have to do that. And of course, it makes it worse that you're dealing with Microsoft and Apple, who have billions of dollars. Of course, when was the last time Apple advertised anything that had anything to do with a laptop or a desktop? All they care about is phones. Microsoft has been pushing the Surface Pro 3s, and people don't even know that there's a Linux out there. So yes, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I'd like to hear more feedback from people out there like that, because I think that's a good place, a good thing to do. I mean, to set up some sort of foundation within the Linux world that doesn't do anything but promote Linux to new users. I think it's a good idea. Okay, so this was a little comment that I got on my video about Linux Lite 3. It says, if it uses systemd, I'm not interested. I responded to this person by telling them that all Ubuntu 16.04 derivatives use systemd, and therefore, so whatever, that's it. You're just stuck with it. I know that there was a great deal of controversy over systemd, and I just wanted to take a moment here to tell you my position on systemd. I really don't care. It's plumbing. It is an initialization system. And what it does is just make sure that it starts and manages services for your computer when it boots up. And I really don't care how that gets done. It's no big deal to me. Systemd is kind of cool because it does have some nice features, and there, once you get used to it, you can do a lot with it as far as administering a system. I think that whether or not a system has systemd is going to be something that's more of concern to somebody who runs a server than it is going to be somebody who's running a desktop, because in the desktop environment, we really don't mess around with that stuff very often. The other day, I was having some problems with Network Manager in Linux Mint 18, and so I had to use systemd to restart the service, and then I reinstalled Network Manager, and it worked fine after that. But that was the last time I had to do anything with systemd. And I think that the controversy that goes on about this is just way overblown. I like what Alan Pope from Ubuntu said. It's plumbing. This is something that's below the surface, and I'd say 80% of the people who are using Linux on their desktops don't even know or care that it's there. And if you want to take a stand on it for ethical reasons, that's entirely up to you. But this is something that I really think that it's a molehill that's been made into a mountain. And most of the major distributions have chosen to go to systemd. Fedora's doing systemd, Ubuntu's doing systemd, Debian's doing systemd, and I think it's a losing battle. I just think it's here, and we're just going to have to learn how to deal with it and use it whether you like it or not. So that's what I have to say about systemd. Okay, where are you from? I am from the planet Neptune. No, I'm from the eastern United States of America, and I live in the state of Virginia. Okay? I live in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, which is the very east coast. If you look at a map of the United States, you will see that on the east coast there's this bulge that sticks out. That's where I live, right above North Carolina there. So that's where I'm from. I've lived all over the state. I lived in North Carolina for a while. I lived in Kentucky, and I moved back here a few years ago because this is where I grew up. So there you go. I'm from here. And this is another thing that I'm hearing a lot of, and it makes me very sad, Mr. Baldwin. So you actually get a double shot in this video. It says 16.04 just doesn't work that well. Not sure what happened, but I put it on my laptop when 14.04 was perfect, and a few things just would not work. For example, my Bluetooth headphones. 14.04 is perfect. 16.04 it would not work at all, and he's had a few other issues. I am very disappointed in Ubuntu 16.04. When it was in beta, and all of the spins that were based on Ubuntu 16.04 were in beta along with it. We're talking about the official spins like Lubuntu and Xubuntu or Xubuntu and Kubuntu and Ubuntu Mate and Ubuntu Gnome. They were all beautiful. I thought, man, this is going to be the greatest little system. And when they went for the official release, something happened. I mean, first of all, we have this lovely network manager problem that just won't go away. And second of all, we have the issues with the display drivers for AMD. And AMD has decided just to tell everybody to use the open source drivers because Ubuntu decided to move on to a newer version of X than they had been using, and the drivers don't work, so I have no idea where that issue is at. Hopefully AMD will put out some new drivers. But AMD has had a history of just saying, oh, we're not going to do that anymore. I remember when I was running Ubuntu 10.10 on a computer with AMD graphics that I had the AMD drivers that I could install, and it gave me more options. They didn't work very well. The open source drivers were actually better in that instance. But then when Ubuntu 12.04 came along, they just dropped support for that particular card. We're not going to deal with it. And it makes me wonder whether AMD has just decided, well, Ubuntu's moved on, so screw you. And if that's the case, then, well, that's the way it is, ladies and gentlemen, which is really sad. And I think that will hurt AMD more than it will hurt Ubuntu. But if you do have AMD graphics, don't be too scared to give it a try, because I've noticed that the open source drivers, especially the ones that are backported from later Linux kernels than Ubuntu has based their kernel on, seem to work really, really well. So it might do the trick for you, unless you are a gamer and you really need high frame rates and that sort of thing. This should not be too much of an issue for you, but for the average user, it should be all right. And I don't think gamers are going to be using AMD graphics anyway. I really don't. I think they're going to go out and they're going to get a card that is much better supported for Linux, and they're going to install it, and that's how they're going to do it. And if you just happen to have internal AMD graphics, or you have an older AMD card, it's not that it doesn't work, you're just not going to be able to install those graphics drivers. That's it. This is one that really made me scratch my head. It said, thanks for the vid, but I really would recommend that you pronounce it as mate, not mate. It is based after the South American plant by that name. Well, that's absolutely true. But I responded to this lovely person here, this none existent. And I said, the Mate developers watch my videos, which they do. Martin Wimpress is somebody who watches my videos, and we've had great conversations, and he's the head developer for Ubuntu Mate, the distribution, and he also works on the Mate desktop. And if I call it Mate, they yell at me. So, I'm just going along with what they say. They do it. I do think it's kind of silly, especially when you look at it in print, because it's Mate. It looks like Mate. But you know what? That's what they call it. They call it Mate. And even though I'm not the most politically correct person on the planet, I've been informed that it's Mate. So I will continue to call it Mate. And other pronunciations of strange Linux projects, I will try to be correct about. However, I can't make any promises because, like, people want to say GNOME, and I'm sorry, that just looks like gnome to me. Comes out gnome, so you're going to have to deal with it. I like what Spatry said in a video not too long ago. Somebody said something about the way he pronounced something, and he said, if you want to get on me about that, here, talk to the hand. So it's kind of the way I feel about it. Good for you, Spatry. Tell them like it is. You are very knowledgeable, but you are too far ahead of newbies. You assume too much. If your presentations aren't for newbies, you should indicate so at the very beginning. As a newbie, I don't care about software packages that are available, at least not right off. What I want to know before anything else is whether YouTube videos work out of the box, i.e., no hunting around the web for sound drivers, video drivers, Wi-Fi drivers. These issues may seem trivial to you, but not to us. Just tell us right off that we can run the YouTube videos with light or whatever out of the box. And if this is not the case, we can move on. Well, this is kind of a strange comment that I got, and I responded to it. And when I responded, the fellow who posted the comment said that, or whoever, said that I had overreacted when I was just simply trying to answer the question. This is a problem, and I think I understand where they're coming from, but I have posted videos about Linux on a continuous basis for over 2 years now, and I have covered all of these basics over and over and over and over again. And so if we go through here and look about what he said that people care about, let's talk about YouTube videos. YouTube videos work out of the box on every Linux distribution out there these days. YouTube has switched to HTML5 video, and you don't even have to have a Flash plugin to watch YouTube videos. So that is a non-issue. As far as hunting around the web for sound drivers, video drivers, Wi-Fi drivers, we don't do that in the Linux world. It doesn't work that way. Either you're going to have the driver available or you're not going to have the driver available. It really comes down to, is it going to work or is it not going to work? a surprising majority of systems that are up and running today, when you install something, let's say like Manjaro or Linux Mint or even Linux Lite, and these are distributions that try and make sure that you have all the drivers installed right up front, it just works. And as far as Wi-Fi is concerned, a lot of the times finding a driver is no big deal. You just go to the driver manager and you install it. There are some hardware combinations and some pieces of hardware out there that simply are not supported in Linux. Sorry, that's the way it is. For instance, my mother is having major problems with her computer right now. They are Windows related because she has run Windows 7 since 2009 when it first came out. And Microsoft has pushed so many screwed up updates down that her system has finally just gone berserk. And believe me, this lady doesn't use it very often, so it's not anything that she did. This is Microsoft trying to trash Windows 7 and forcing that Windows 10 upgrade upon her. And the only problem with that is that she really relies on her printer and her copier and her scanner. Her printer and copier and scanner happen to be a Dell, and it happens to be like a 6-year-old one. And guess what? Dell does not have any Linux drivers for it. That just machine will not work. It's a brick. So right now we are searching for something that is going to do the job for her that will be supported by Linux, coming from a company that does have great Linux support like HP or Brother or any of these. There's several companies out there that make hardware that are very well supported by Linux. And to tell you the truth, my position on this is that if you have a printer or if you have Wi-Fi that doesn't work on Linux, then buy a new one. Because that stuff is not that big a deal to get a hold of, and to let a printer that, a $40 or $50 printer hold you back from using Linux, which you're getting for free anyway, is silly. And I've heard that over and over and over again as an excuse. I've got to stick with Windows because it's the only thing that'll work with my printer. It's the only thing that'll work with my Wi-Fi. That's silly. If you want to do Linux, then find out what will work with your hardware and go buy Linux supported hardware and move on. But that's entirely up to you. It's a matter of choice. I just think that's a silly thing to do. So anyway, just tell us right off that we can run YouTube. Yes, we can do all this. And if it's not the case, we can move on. Well, I mean, if I ever come across a Linux distribution that won't play YouTube videos, I'll let you know. I mean, right up front, I'll let you know. This does not play YouTube. It doesn't work. And there's a valid issue in here, though. It's because, yes, my videos are designed, hopefully, to get people started with Linux. But it's kind of weird because some of you out there are intermediate users. Some of you are very interested in learning about things that are a bit more advanced. And so, therefore, each video that I do, I got to think, well, who's going to watch this? And I don't really want to just spend a lot of time covering the basics. So if you are new, I mean, let's say that you just subscribe to the channel and you happen to be watching this long video where I just ramble. I would suggest going back and looking at some of the earlier videos. I cover this. I have videos where I show you how to install things. I have videos that talk about the Linux file system. I just did an entire series of videos a couple of months ago on the terminal. They're all here. You just need to go back through the videos and then you can find that stuff out. And, I mean, if you want to learn about Linux, I'm going to say this and then I'm going to move on. If you want to learn about Linux, you're going to have to invest some time into it. It's not instant gratification. And it's very different from other operating systems that you're used to. If you're coming from Windows or if you're coming from even from Mac, Linux is a learning experience from the day that you start using it. And yeah, there's hundreds of videos up here and it takes time to figure all this stuff out. Okay, we got another one here, and this is an interesting comment here from Shell Casing. I only learned about the Enable Write Cache feature in this video. I have an SSD on my laptop. Is it a good idea to enable this feature for an SSD? The answer is yes, and he's referring to using the utility called Disks. That's available in Linux Mint, and most Linux distributions have that available. If it's not installed, then you can install it. The name of the package is the GNOME Disk Utility. And one of the things that allows you to do is to access the firmware on the hard drive, and you can enable the cache on the drive itself. And I always do that. I even do that in virtual machines. It makes the system run a lot faster. There is a downside to that. If data is stored in the cache and it has not gotten written to the disk yet, and for some reason the computer loses power before that data gets written, then it gets lost, and that there is a slight chance of causing file corruption, or you might lose some data. But my personal experience is that I never have had that happen to me. I've never come across that. And if you are running a laptop, let's say, that has a battery in it, the system will never lose power. Even if you pull the power cord out, it just switches to battery. And even on desktops that don't have UPSs, I've never had a problem with it. Yeah, you lose the file that you're working on, but as far as corrupting anything or causing any major issue, no big deal. This person also went on to talk about swap and the fact that the swap partition was being used even though they had 8 gigabytes of RAM. And there are some applications on Linux that use the swap partition. That's why I always tell people you got to have swap. Don't drop swap. Do not install your Linux and then just say, well, I don't need a swap partition. I have 16 gigabytes of RAM. Some applications are looking for it, and it makes the system a little bit unstable not to have it. So you can put a swap partition on your drive. You can enable a swap file if you want to. You can always set the swappiness. All of this has been covered in past videos, and that way you can have some control over it. People with SSDs are worried about swap wearing out their drives, and the truth of the matter is if you've got a lot of memory in the computer, it probably will very rarely use swap. But you do need to have it somewhere available to the system. It's got to be there. And also enabling the write cache feature on your hard drives, that'll make your system go real fast. In virtual machines, once you enable that, make sure that on your SATA controller in your virtual machine settings that you set it to do I/O pass-through to the master cache on the host machine. That will make those things run a lot faster as well. And I think that's all the questions that I had. So yeah, okay, I've rambled on quite a bit and we've talked about those questions. One more thing to talk about here. So let's switchy desktopies and we'll look at the pretty new EzeeLinux page, and this is what it looks like. And yeah, we know it's full screen and we know how to exit and all that other stuff. Okay, gang, so people are always asking how to get a hold of me, and honestly, YouTube messages are not the best way to go. And also the messages on Facebook, people are sending me messages on the EzeeLinux Facebook page here, and I do get them. It takes me a while to get up to speed on those. The quickest, surest way to get in touch with me is to use the Contact Us page at EzeeLinux.com. And this has been revamped. You don't have to give me a phone number anymore, just some basic information. And there's nothing here that has to be filled out exactly right except the email address. And then you can type me a message here, and it will come straight to me, and you can choose whatever topic works for you. So this is really the best way to do it. And I have 3 topics here. You can ask me about getting you started with Linux, which is what EzeeLinux is really all about. It's personal IT services. And then, technical support and feedback. So if you really want to just get directly to me, this is probably the quickest way to go. I have never made a secret out of my email address, but I also do not advertise it, just simply for the obvious reasons. And this is one way that you can get a hold of me. This will come directly to me, and then I will respond to you. And you can do that here at the EzeeLinux page and just go to the Contact Us, and that will come directly to me. And I constantly am watching email. I realize that some people say that people use text messages these days and email is dying, and I just look at you and go, absolutely bullshit. You have no idea how much email that I receive on a daily basis. Don't you tell me it's dying. People say, oh, you don't need mail clients. People use webmail. They don't use email anymore anyway. I don't think so. A lot of people use email. So anyway, if you send something here, it will go directly to my email. My email's always open. I'm always looking at it, and I will get it. So that is our Q&A for the month of June 2016. Thank you for watching. Be sure and give EzeeLinux a look. I would really appreciate it. We're working on the page. Don't expect too much change in the, a little while down the road here. I got some things I got to get done, and then this summer I really intend to spend some time working on this page. So for right now, this is kind of what you get. And it's just a revamp of the old page, but I'm going to really work on this over the summer. I'm also working with Jeremy at Cyberweb Solutions. So you can check out Jeremy's stuff here. We'll go to his site and take a look at it. Cyberweb Solutions. And you can find out what Jeremy's all about. He does a lot of consulting and very interested in open source, especially when it's concerned with servers and business. He's also a developer. He writes programs, and this is his company here. So check him out if you would. Check out freedompenguin.com for more articles about Linux, and check out Facebook. And if you do, give it a like. The EzeeLinux page on Facebook. All of the videos pop up for the first time on Facebook. So if you're losing them in your subscriptions on YouTube, you're not being able to keep up, like us over there and just keep up with that. And every time that I post a video, it will show up there and you can watch it. So that's it, gang. Talk to you again soon. Thank you for watching.